talk a little bit about some geometry. Geometry. So there is a nice word that we can take apart and define. What does geometry mean? What's geo mean? Anyone else know what geo or know of other words that have geo in it? Grace?
Geode.
What? Geode. What's a geode?
A rock.
A rock. So what's geology?
And the study of
Yeah, sorry. I stole your thunder. Or study of rocks or the earth, right? What's geography? Yes, Kiara.
Study of the earth.
Well, not the study of the earth, but
Yeah.
so geology is study of the earth. What's geography?
Study of the globe.
Yeah, kind of. So you know what a globe is? It's like a map, right? Or a graph of the earth. Geography. So that's what geography is. Okay? It's not geography. This is geometry. What's metry? What do you think metry is? Yes. Math. Very close. What is metry or metric? Yes.
I was gonna say metric.
Metric, so measurement of the earth. So geometry is earth measurement. So measuring the earth or things in the earth, or really all the dimensions of the earth. So dimensions range from 0 to 3. So 0 dimension means it doesn't have any length or width or depth or anything like that. So like a point in geometry has no dimensions. It's just an exact location in space. Sometimes we use this as a point, but really, if you can see it, then it has dimensions, right? It actually has length and width, right? And since this is a marker, it comes off the board a little bit, so it even has depth. So this is like a 3-dimensional object, which is silly. But in geometry, we can't really talk about points without putting some kind of symbol there. So we use a dot for points, okay? But then 1 dimension is like a line. It just has length, but it doesn't have any width. So really, technically, you can't see a line. But we have to use a line like this, even though this is really just a rectangle, isn't it? Because it has length and it has height because you can see it. It has a little bit of height there, okay? But then you've got 2 dimensions, which is like a square or rectangle or things like that. So that has length and width. And then you have 3 dimensions, length, width, and depth or height or something like that. But that's it. People who tell you there are 4 dimensions are not mathematical, okay? So there's only 3 dimensions in space. So when I say space, you guys are in space right now. So when I talk about outer space, that's different, okay? Outer space is outside of our atmosphere, okay? But space is everything, okay? So there's only one space, okay? But there's multiple like planes and things like that, 2-dimensional things and 1-dimensional things, and an infinite number of those things, and especially infinite number of points, right? Exact locations in space, those are points. Okay, but let's go back to the basics. Let's say we live in a 3-dimensional world, and that is just space, okay? So we have length, we have 3 dimensions, length, width, depth, whatever you want to say. So after 3D comes 2D, 2 dimensions, and these are planes, okay? So for example, this whiteboard is a plane. Like it represents a plane, so it's a flat surface, but the plane of this whiteboard does not stop here, 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 and here. The plane of this whiteboard goes on forever up, goes on forever, what is that, west, goes on forever east, goes on forever through the earth, through China, whatever's on the other, I don't know what's on the other side of it. It's on the other side of the globe is us. Is that China?
Yeah,
Do you know?
I think it's the ocean.
Okay, it's probably an ocean, okay? But it goes through that to the outer space below us. I don't know if it's below. Anybody here flat earth people? Okay, good. Just so you know, our world is a globe, And it's actually not a sphere. It's a little oblong. Did you guys know that? It's not a perfect ball. It's not a perfect sphere. It's a little bit wider than it is taller. Isn't that weird? Did you guys know that? Yeah, you do. Okay, so two-dimensional plane. So this is, we have like length and width. Okay? All right, boys. I don't know if you can sit together. You need to move. Does one of you guys need to move? See, now it's caught on video. So I'm like disciplining them on video. I'm not going to tell you who they are. Okay?
This is gonna be on YouTube.
It's going to be on YouTube, and no one's going to know who you are. But I guess it depends on what, how you guess that. All right, so don't turn around. You're facing me because I'm better looking, and you're paying attention. Got it? All right, so 2 dimensions, length and width in a plane. So you can see the length, you can see the width of here, but it really goes on forever, okay? So then you got 1 dimension. So this is like a line. This goes on forever in both directions, but if I were to draw this as a plane, just imagine this plane going on forever in both directions, in all 4 directions. But over here, this is a line. So when I say draw a line, if I asked your younger siblings to draw a line, what would they do? They would just go, right? Oh, that was satisfying. Fun. Okay, everybody try it once. That was pathetic. Okay, try it. On 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That sounded like bad gas is what it sounded like. Didn't sound like... Okay, practice that. Show me a better on Thursday, okay? All right, so, but really, if I were to draw a real line, I would go on forever until I died, okay? I would just walk for the rest of my life, and I still wouldn't draw the line, right? Because it goes on forever. If you ask someone to draw a line, that's impossible. But if I can represent a line like this, because this means just keep going that way forever, keep going this way forever, okay?
There's something you put on it though to stop.
What?
Don't you put something on it though to stop? It's
To stop? Well, if you were to draw a line segment, then that segment, that word segment actually literally means part. A line part. So part of a line, I could stop it here and stop it there, and that's part of a line, that's called a line segment. So that one has a beginning and an end, or an end and a beginning, whichever way you look at it. Okay? So far, so good? All right, and then what's 0 dimensions?
It's nothing.
Do you know?
Air.
Air. Well, air actually is 3-dimensional because air takes up like a lot of space, right? You just can't see it because it's transparent. Yes.
It's nothing.
Nothing, an exact, but it's 0 dimension means it doesn't have length, width, but it is referring to an exact location in space. What is that called?
It's a dot.
It's a dot or a point. Okay, good. So in geometry class, we represent a point with a dot. Okay, but like we said, you wouldn't be able to see that if that was an actual point. But we represent it with a dot, otherwise it would be impossible to teach geometry. Not impossible, but not very fun.
Very difficult.
Very difficult. All right, so far so good? Okay, this is where it gets funny. This is where it gets funny. So if I said draw a curve, what would your younger siblings do? Yeah, they would. Right, so a curve basically could be like this, okay? And it goes on forever. So basically the definition of a curve is like a collection of points that are basic adjacent points that are touching each other. Okay, so these points, so if I drew a curve, I could just draw a bunch of points like this, and that's a curve, okay? Right? Does that make sense? A bunch of points that are connected to each other. So it's infinite set of points that are touching each other. Okay, but here's where it gets funny. A line is a curve. But your brains say, wait a minute, a curve has to be curvy, right? When there's a curve in the road, that means you're going to turn a little bit. So when in our society, when we say curve, we mean turn a little bit. But a curve in geometry is just a collection of points. So a line is what we call a straight curve. That seems like it's opposite, right?
So you're driving and your dad sits down and spun and you go, Dad, there's a curve. It's just straight.
Yeah.
Technically, you're not wrong.
Technically, you're not wrong. Sorry, officer, there was a curve in the road. Ask Mr. Flack. You know, he'll take you to court. Okay? Line is a straight curve. So this is just still a collection of infinite points, right? See that? Now they just happen to form a straight path, but it's still a curve. Okay? Sit on that for a little bit. I'm gonna mess with you. Okay, so a line, when we label a line, so these are basically the four important terms that you need to know. Okay, so dimensionally, this space is a three-dimensional thing that goes on forever in all directions. Okay, all around you. That's what space is. A plane is a two-dimensional infinite surface. Okay. A line is a one-dimensional object that goes on forever in both directions. And a point is 0 dimensions, but it's an exact location in space. A curve is just a collection of points. So a line is a type of curve. It's just a straight curve. Yes?
You said there was only 3 dimensions.
There is. Oh, I guess 0 would be a 0 dimension. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean 0 dimensions. There's 4 categories of dimensions. There's 0 dimension, 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions. But there's only 3 dimensions. But I see what you did there. All right, let me erase this, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of lines specifically and types of lines. So we already talked about line segments, right? So line segments are literally, and I'm using the word literally, the way you should be using literally, not like, I'm literally so tired right now, I want to go home. I'm literally so tired. Okay? So don't say literally unless you really mean it. If you were literally tired, you would be made out of the letters T-I-R-E-D. Okay? That would mean you're literally tired. But a line segment is literally part of a line because the word segment means part. Okay? So, please don't abuse the word literally. Anyone watch Studio C?
Oh, yes.
So Studio C, there's some funny, there's a, Captain Literal.
They need to go watch it.
So Captain Literal, like when someone misuses the word literally, he like goes, I'm Captain Literal, and you misused the word. So he makes them do something literally, which is funny. It's not very funny unless you watch it. So YouTube it, if you guys are able to watch YouTube. Studio C, Captain Literal, it's funny. Okay? It's a good lesson though. All right, so a line. Let's get back to our line. I'm gonna switch markers. Yes. Yes, you can go to the bathroom. All right, boys, I'm coming through. I'm getting a marker. Don't be scared. 1 second.
That's not scared. That's like
Mortified.
you will go. No, I'm sure we could actually try to get it.
Okay, I got it. We're good. Okay, so a line. Oh, that's satisfying. Look at that. So remember, a line looks like this, right? It goes on forever in both directions. So how you would describe this line, not the line on the board, you would need some more information. So if I had a couple points here, and really it doesn't matter how many points you have, but let's say that I've got these points on there. I have some choices here on what I could call this line. Okay, I would say line AB or line AC or line BD. It doesn't matter. All you need to do is just pick 2 points on the line. That's how you label the line. You just have to pick 2 points. It can be any points. Because if you try to draw a line through AB, remember, it goes on forever in both directions. It's going to look exactly like the line through AC, right? It's going to look exactly like the line through BD. That line is going to look the same no matter which 2 points you put it through, right? Because they go on forever in both directions. So this AB goes on forever in those directions. AC goes on forever in that direction. BD goes on forever. See how it's the same line? So it doesn't matter which 2 points you pick, just pick 2. Now we've got a better way to write it. Instead of writing out the word line, we can do this. AB with the line symbol on top of it. Or AC with the line symbol on top of it. Or BD with the line symbol on top of it. And it doesn't matter what order you do it in. You could say BA or CA or DB. What are two more ways we can label this line? Yes, Grace.
You can label it.
Yeah. So, line what? Yeah. So now you just have to pick a couple letters that we haven't picked.
Oh, okay. BC.
BC, right. We didn't say BC yet, or we could say CB, doesn't matter. All right, yes.
AD.
AD, that's right, or DA, okay? So the order doesn't matter, and what you start with doesn't matter. So lines are pretty easy to label. You just have to pick 2 points. Everybody got it? All right. So if I were to cut this line in half, they used to call this a half line, which makes sense, right? So if I cut it in half, it is called something else. It looks like this. So it does have an end point, but it goes on forever in one direction. Do you know what that's called? I'm going to give you a hint. Yes.
A laser.
A laser. Good question, or good guess.
Laser gun?
A laser gun. What else do they call a laser gun?
Beam bullet.
Starts with an R.
Rifle.
Ray gun. So this is like a ray, or like think about the sun here, right? Here's the sun. Yay. Okay. So there's a ray coming off the sun. So a ray has a starting point, and then it goes on forever in one direction. Okay. Theoretically, right? Like the light from the sun theoretically would go on forever, but it breaks down. I don't know how the science works, but and a laser gun, like you want to keep your laser ray gun on safety at all times, because if you shoot that, what's the rule on where that stops? Like in Star Wars, like when they shoot that and it just hits something or it bounces off, like in the trash compactor. Remember that? Like it's just going to keep bouncing forever until it hits something or kills something. Okay, so please keep your ray guns on safety. Okay, for your own safety and for others. Okay, so that just goes on forever. That's called a ray. They used to call this a half line. Okay, a mudblood. They used to call it a half line. All right, it's only part or half of a line. But technically, this goes on forever. So the length of this is like infinite, and the length of this is infinite. So then it's weird to call it a half line, right? But you can kind of see why they call it half a line. Because it's only this half, this side. If you drew another half, the other half, then that would be a line. Okay? Make sense so far? Array? All right, let's figure out how to label array. So let's say we have our own points up there again. So the way you would label this is more specific. So you would have to say ray A something. You have to start with the letter A because that's the end point, or that's where it starts, right? Yes. AB, or you could say ray AC, or you could say ray AD. That's it. You can't say BA, CA, and DA because the first letter has to be where it starts. This is where it starts. Okay? And we don't say the beginning point or starting point in geometry, and this is going to bug you, but it's called the end point. I know. So in geometry, there aren't really beginnings and ends. There's just ends of something. Like on a line segment, there's two endpoints. Like it starts and stops, right? But we don't call it the beginning point and end point. We just call it two endpoints. On array, there's only one endpoint, and that's how you need to label it. Well, you could do that with a symbol. Just use the ray symbol. Ray AB, ray AC, or ray AD. Okay? So far, so good? All right, so the third one is our line segment. We've already talked enough about this, but there are some different ways to remember this or to label this. If I had, so there's no arrows, there's just endpoints. So if this was A, still A, B, C, D. If I were to label this complete segment here, now there's actually multiple segments inside of this segment, right? There's a segment there, a segment there, a segment there. There's also a segment here, segment there. But really this whole segment would be called segment AD or segment DA. That's it. It's not like a line where you can just choose anything on the segment. When you're labeling a segment, you have to choose the two endpoints. Yes? Yep. So there is a nice little symbol. This is just AD or DA. Okay? You guys remember doing this? This is probably, you guys probably did this in your last class, last math class. Okay.
Same.
Really?
Yeah.
Learning it at home? It's okay. Then you took a class.
I didn't. I just listened to my mom and hoped it made sense.
Okay. So in your homework, it might say something like name a line in this diagram or name a segment in this diagram. So right here, if I drew this, yes.
Can I name my line Charlie?
You can name your line Charlie, yes. But there's only one way to name this. Actually, there's two ways to name this line. How do you name this line?
A, B, or B?
A, B, or BA, that's right. Now, there is a segment. Do you guys see the segment inside of there? So name a segment. Yes, Grace?
Segment B.
Yeah, segment AB or segment BA. So put that symbol there. So that's what this part is. Okay, and there is a ray in there. There's actually two rays in there. Can you name a ray? Yes, Grady?
Wait, isn't it like A and then forever?
Yep, so really that second letter, you need two letters. The second letter is just what direction you're shooting. So A shooting at
B.
B. There's only one thing over there. Okay, so this guy is represented with this green ray here. So do you see how you can name a line, you can name a segment, and you can name a ray in just this one diagram? Okay? You guys just need to know the difference between the three figures. You need to know the difference between a line, ray, and segment. Are you okay with that? All right. Do you know what those three things are? Okay. All right. So, a couple more concepts in this geometry lesson. So when I cross two lines, when two lines touch each other, that is called the two lines that, and it starts with an I.
Two lines that interconnect.
Interconnect, kind of close.
Intersect.
Intersect, that's right.
You stole it.
Ready? Stealer. I'm Stealer. So two lines intersect, or really it doesn't have to be lines. I mean, two rays can intersect. So basically, intersect means lines that cross. Okay, so for example, here's a line, here's a line. Okay, if this is line AB and this is line CD, and they would intersect at this point P. Okay, so point P is where lines AB and CD intersect. Okay, pretty simple?
Yeah.
All right, well, what happens when they intersect in like the way we normally, when you think of intersect, what do you think of?
Two things crossing.
Yeah, so what in our world intersects? Yes.
Football.
Football? Oh,
Intersect.
it actually comes from the same word. It's where they touch, basically where they touch. So they intercept is kind of like the intersect. That's right. But where do we see intersecting lines?
Railroad.
Railroads or just roads, right? So we see intersections, right, of roads. Yes.
Oh, that makes sense.
What's that?
What about addition sign?
Addition sign are two intersecting lines, right? So when two lines intersect like this and they form right angles, what kind of lines are these called? It's a very fun word to say.
Right lines.
It's a 5-syllable word. Starts with a P. What kind of? Perpendicular, that's right. Perpendicular lines basically intersect and form right angles or square corners. Okay, so see how each of these look like a corner of a square. You see that? So those are perpendicular lines. Most road intersections are perpendicular lines, right? Because they form square corners. Like downtown Denver, it gets all weird. I don't like going down
As
there.
long as it is downtown Denver weird enough by itself.
Oh, it's weird enough by itself. But, especially Boulder. But there's like diagonal roads, and that just messes with my head. I don't know which way is north, which way is south. It's confusing. I like my perpendicular roads. Yes.
What if a curve intersects with itself?
A curve can intersect with itself. You're right. But a line will never intersect with itself, right? And these two lines that intersect, are they ever going to come back and intersect again? No. Nope. So there's only ever one point. What happens if they never intersect?
Then they're I know the word
Friends.
You do know the word.
parallel.
Parallel, that's right. So those are like railroad tracks or parallel lines. But also the ties in between the railroad tracks, you know, like the little wood planks in between the railroad tracks. Those are perpendicular, right, to the parallel lines. Okay, so if they never intersect, they're called parallel. And we'll get that. So two lines that never intersect, if they never intersect, and remember they're lines, so they go on forever. So like these lines, the way they're drawn don't intersect. But if they're lines, they keep going, and eventually they will, right? So these lines are not parallel, even if you just draw them like that. And you can tell, right? you can tell if they're eventually going to intersect. Like this one, I didn't draw perfectly, so maybe they would eventually intersect somewhere in Colorado Springs, maybe. I don't know. Okay? But yeah, so you can tell just by looking at it whether they're parallel, can't you? All right, so parallel lines never intersect. They are parallel lines. Bless you.
Sorry.
Oh, you don't have to apologize. Did you sneeze? Okay. I was just making sure because usually you don't say sorry when you sneeze. It's just part of life. Unless you sneeze in somebody's face purposely, then you should apologize.
No,
that's
now,
just
now I'm
weird.
just gonna go sneeze in someone's face and he's like, excuse me, and
I
then like,
shouldn't.
Mr. Flack told me not to say sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so now what happens if you have two rays with the same endpoint? What is that thing called? Grace knows. Do you know? What is it?
An acute one?
Well, it's an acute something, but not an
Acute
angle.
angle.
Angle, that's right. This is called an angle. So an angle is formed when two rays have the same endpoint. Okay, do you see the two rays there? Here's one ray, here's another ray. Okay. All right, remember in a ray there's no beginning point, but that is, so in an angle this is called the vertex. So this guy is called the vertex, and these are the sides. Okay, those are the sides of the angle, and you have so there's three parts of an angle. There's a side, a vertex, and another side. Okay, and the way you would label an angle is with three letters. Must use one or three letters. Okay, now you can use one letter if there's only one angle coming out of M. Do you see how there's only one angle coming out of M there? So must use one or three letters. So either angle M or angle, and then we use a point on this side, and then the vertex, and a point on this side. So we would say DMB, or, oops, not DBB, that's weird, or angle BMD. But look, the vertex must be in the middle. So vertex must be in the middle. Okay? So it's kind of weird labeling an angle because you kind of want to start there, don't you? Because that's where they're coming out of. But you can't. That's got to be in the middle. So you either say angle DMB or BMD. Now, the only time you can use one letter and just say angle M, because there's no question what angle you're talking about. But if you have a situation like this, and I say angle M, see how that could be referring to this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle, or this angle. There's multiple angles that are coming out of M. Okay, so I can't say use one letter. So it's always safe to use three letters if you can to label an angle. Okay? Now this is a concept that a lot of people struggle with. So make sure you know how to label an angle. All right? Okay, now this is where it's fun. Hunter already described what kind of angle this is, but what angle is under 90 degrees. So it's not like a right angle, like up like that. It's not a square, but it's a little bit less all the way to there. What is that called?
Acute.
Acute, because it's a cute little angle, isn't it?
That's how I remember it.
So a acute angle is less than 90 degrees. All right. What kind of angle is the chubby one? What's the chubby angle? Yes, Hunter. Obtuse, that's right. Obtuse kind of sounds like obese or big. Okay? Obtuse angle is greater than 90 degrees, but more specifically, it's in between 90 and 180. But we're just going to say for now, greater than 90 degrees. Okay? Okay? Do you have a cute, obtuse jokes? Are you calling each other?
You're obtuse.
That is so obtuse. People use that as an insult, not because they're obese, but because how can you be so obtuse? Meaning you're thinking too big. Okay? So, but acute literally means sharp. Okay? Acute and another word for acute another word for sharp in Spanish is acute. Okay? So acute, see how that forms a sharper arrowhead, right? I mean, this is more effective than an arrowhead that looks like this, right? This arrowhead is not going to hurt as many people. No, that sounds gross. I'm not trying to hurt people. Let's say I'm trying to stab a tree. I love nature, though. Please don't judge me. I mean, I'd rather use this knife than this knife. But this is more effective. It's sharper. It's acute. Yes?
Why didn't you say to stab an apple?
I could, but I'm just not hungry, all right? Just wanted to stab a tree. Don't you ever want to stab a tree?
Oh, all the time.
Okay. So we got acute. We've got obtuse. What if it's exactly 90 degrees? What do we call that angle? Yes, that's right. A right angle is 90 degrees. So it's not less than 90 or greater than 90. It is 90. Is 90 degrees. Okay? Now there's one more that opens up all the way. So see how if it opens up like this, it's acute, 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 right. Obtuse, 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 obtuse. What if it opens up all the way? What kind of angle is that?
Line.
It's a line. It forms a straight line. Or it is technically an angle. It's an angle that opened up all the way and is probably now broken. It's called a straight angle.
What?
Yep.
An angle means the exact opposite of straight, though.
Yeah.
I know, but if you think about the angle, why do you automatically judge the angle and say you're no longer an angle? Why do you not like angles? So acute, 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 right. Obtuse, 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 straight. And then after that, then you're hyperextending your arms and it's uncomfortable. Okay? So straight angle is 180 degrees. Okay? So it opens all the way up to 180 degrees. Okay? Can you guys remember those words? You probably will never forget acute and obtuse. Even when you're 60, you'll probably know what an acute angle is. Just because it was so fun to learn it. Because it's a cute little angle. And you will probably never forget obtuse and probably never forget right angle. Straight angle is kind of a newer concept, but it is a thing. Okay, it's technically an angle. It looks weird, but it looks like this, but it's still an angle. Okay, even though it opens up all the way. Yes, sir.
The right angle is the hardest one to remember. Because a right angle can be facing left.
That's right. Ooh, that's clever. Okay, so that is lesson 7.